Hey guys, welcome to another driving test video. So the test we have today is at Bromley Driving Test Center, and this took place on Wednesday the 4th of December 2024, and time for the test was at 12:38 p.m. so this is literally the same time as the last test I posted. So let's see if it's actually going to be the same, if it's going to be the same test route, because this was the same test time and the same examiner for the two of them. So let's see if it's going to be the same one. So yep, the test was a fail, and it was 3 driving faults, or sorry, there was 2 driving faults and 1 serious fault, so that's 3 altogether. And this is one of those ones that really gets to you, because if imagine you've driven so well, only 2 minor faults, and then you get just 1 serious fault that then messes everything up. And to think of it, the serious fault was just for progress, so literally not driving fast enough, not keeping up with traffic, not making progress enough. And this is why this test was a fail, and it's so painful. So yep, let's look at the tests and see if we can pick out where the faults are and what we can learn from this video. So after turning onto Bontosh Lane, the next instruction is to turn right, but I believe Lena was probably not aware on time of what she's doing next. Now if you look at the other learner in front of us, you can see how well positioned that driver is. That is very good, although the van behind cannot pass through, but this is no fault of that learner, because the vehicle behind is just a big one, so there's nothing you can do here. But keep in mind that if this is happening because you didn't position well, then this is something you can be getting a minor fault for. And if it's causing even much more problem on the road, it could eventually be a serious fault. If your inability to position properly makes it impossible for other vehicles to pass through on your left when they could, then that could be a serious fault. Now at this point, Lena's been asked to pull up on the left, and as you would see here, there is a massive gap from the curb, and we could have closed up a bit more to that pavement. Now these are situations where you get lucky. She's gotten away with this only because this road is wide enough. Now if she had done that on Bontash Lane and leave this kind of space, you probably would get a serious fault, because that's going to be blocking traffic from passing around you, unless if you're lucky enough you get a minor fault in that situation. So keep this in mind. The space is very important, especially be aware of the kind of road you're driving on when you're doing this, because if the road is really narrow and you're leaving so much gap on the left, you would more likely get a fault. And as you can see here, examiner has asked her to do it here again. It is very common for examiner to ask you to do it right after you moved off again if they're not satisfied with the previous one, because from several test videos that I've done, when you do a pull up on the left and the space seems very good on the camera, they don't tend to do it right immediately after again. They do that later again, about 2-3 times again, but it wouldn't normally be just exactly as soon as you've just finished one and then you move off and you're asked to pull up again. This would, like I said, normally happen if you haven't done that one properly and then you move off and immediately examiner says pull up on the left again. Just, I say, give you another second chance to fix that one. Always remember to make progress when and if it's safe to do so, because if you don't, this is where you start getting close to a minor fault, and if that continues for longer than necessary on that particular road, then it could become a serious fault. Now I do not believe this is where she actually got the serious fault, but would look out for more of this later on. Always remember to make haste and move on when you join a new road. The learner could have failed at this point, but luckily the vehicle behind was being blocked by another car turning right. If not that, then that car would have gotten to her back and have to slow down because she almost came to a complete stop. The common mistake on this road is that a lot of drivers confuse this road on the left, which is London Road, thereby reducing a lot of speed while they think of what to do so as not to pass London Road. Just continue straight, even if that's not the correct place to go. It's better than stopping that traffic on that main road, which then gives you a serious fault. Now for this particular route, the learner should have turned right here. So this must be the road where she mentioned that she missed the road. And as you can see, there is no fault given. So sometimes it's better to just miss a road if you realized it last minute than take a spontaneous reaction, maybe reduce speed suddenly or take a turn suddenly. Pay attention to this pedestrian here and make sure that if they have already started crossing, wait and stay put where you are and allow them to cross before you continue. And this also brings us to that controversial rule of giving way to pedestrian waiting or crossing at the junction, because in this situation you would actually be required to wait for that pedestrian to cross. But as you can see, there was no fault given there at all, because yes, that rule can be very confusing, especially for a driver who is not well experienced on the road and probably is going to struggle to know how to deal with these situations. When do I give way? Is it actually safe? Someone is just giving you way, and do you want to stop in the middle of the road and not move, or do you want to even just stay put there and holding back traffic? So it can be too confusing, and I'm pleased that a lot of examiners don't fail learners for this sort of situations. But remember, it is very, very important when you know it is safe enough and it's obvious to give someone way at the junction, then you should be doing that. I would like to remind you that sometimes your lack of progress is not actually necessarily the speed you're traveling at when you're driving and moving on straight, but sometimes it's just the way you move on after dealing with a meeting situation. Like you'd see here, we're going through these cars, and as a car comes through, we reduce speed to get through that situation, but it takes a little bit more time before we pick up speed again. That shouldn't be. It starts to feel too slow. So let's watch it right here. So this car comes through, and now we're still at 7, now going to 8, 9, 10, 11, and then it takes a bit to, the more you have to meet traffic and then you have to take this approach every now and then, the whole drive feels so slow. Keep this in mind. And then at this junction, as you see, after these cars are turned, it takes a little bit more time again before we moved off. Now, if it was more busier during this time of this test, it more likely would have been a serious for all of these undue hesitations. So keep it in mind. Trust what you see. If you don't see anything and it's safe, get going, move on. If you can't see through a bend, you at least have to start creeping, because if you sit there, you're not going to see anything. Your visibility is never going to change by just sitting there. Get peeping and creeping. And if this is how you position yourself in meeting situations, you're also going to struggle. Now, pay attention to the oncoming traffic that are passing us. And what's happened here is that when you pull too much to the left, now left plenty of gap between your car and the center of the road, thereby creating a bigger gap between you and the passing vehicles. And that means you're not going to be able to see properly ahead of you to see exactly when it's going to be good for you to go and all of that. Second thing is, in some roads, some drivers behind you might actually just think you're parking by, even those coming towards you as well. Hence, no one's going to make attempt to give you way. So yes, you're trying to keep left so that you give space to oncoming traffic, but give just about the space required so that you give yourself a good chance to see ahead, give yourself a better opportunity of steering out when it's time to move off. And just as I mentioned, she couldn't see at this point if it was clear, and eventually when she decided to move now, after moving, she realized there's a van coming through, and that's because she's too far to the left. And this position would have been a perfect position to keep herself. And it's just that little movement, but it makes a lot of difference on being able to see what is happening ahead of you. And again, a lot of drivers confuse themselves with the road on the left here. You are following the road which is bearing right. You're not turning left into this road. It is a very common mistake. Keeping in mind, even the sat-nav would say bear right, and that's so you can keep right and not take that road on your left. Remember, if examiner hasn't told you to turn left, sat-nav hasn't told you to turn left, you should not be crossing a junction line or a giveaway line on your left. So let's take a long pause and look at this situation here thoroughly, because it's a very common one that I see a lot of the times when learners deal with meeting situations, especially when you're not confident with space and all that. Now, if you look at the situation right here, we've got parked cars on our left in our lane, and on the right hand side there are no parked cars, and because of these, the drivers on your right approaching you have already positioned well enough to the right in order to give you enough space to pass that situation. Now, whether you take that space or not is now left to you. Think of this as a common agreement between drivers in order to help each other deal with traffic on the road and help, keep the flow of traffic moving. So look at this white car on the right and see how far to the right this car is, and look how much space we've got in between the two cars. So the cars on the left and the white car on the right. Now, this is my approach to situations like this. If I'm approaching this situation here, looking ahead of me, I can already see parked cars in front of me. So for that reason, I'm not going to be keeping left. I'm actually going to be sitting on top of this hatch marking in the middle of the road, because you can use this hatch marking if necessary, and this is that kind of situation where it's necessary to use it. Now, if you get on the hatch marking and you still feel like you still don't have enough space to pass the situation, then take the next space that's been given to you by that white driver. So remind yourself they've given you that space in their own lane so that you can make use of it if you need to. Now, for me driving through here, I probably wouldn't need that space, but for you, you need this space, fine, then use it. Consider and compare this with a parking bay. This space we have in front of us is way bigger than a parking bay, and yet our car fits in a parking bay. So if you can fit in a parking bay but you can't fit in this space, then we have a problem. So think about this next time you're getting into meeting situations. And again, right here, pay attention to how far we get close to the van before the car takes a steer away from that van. That should have been done automatically as we passed that island, because you can already see that van there. So don't continuously keep getting close to parked vehicles ahead of you when you know they are there. Keep away from them. The earlier the better. This may not necessarily be a minor fault or a problem on this drive, but imagine if the road was much busier. This could cause a lot more traffic on the road, hence leading you to a minor fault. And if you continuously do that, then you could eventually get a serious fault. And don't forget, if you plan better ahead of you, it just makes the momentum much better. It makes your drive a lot more enjoyable, and it shows more confidence on the road. Now, I want you to pay attention to the speed limit as we drive on this road, because I believe that this is the road that she got the serious fault. Now, keep in mind how far we have driven below 20 miles an hour. During the feedback, the examiner mentioned that he asked her what the speed limit on that road was, and she answered correctly. She said it was 30 miles per hour. But after that, she had not adjusted the speed, so we continued on that same speed. And of course, at that point, an examiner reminding you on that in most cases be giving you the opportunity to adjust your speed, and if you don't, then you'd get a minor fault or a serious fault depending on how far you've been driving below speed. So keep in mind, even after all this while, we're still below 20 miles an hour, so hence would have that serious fault on this road, because the road is actually 30 miles an hour. And at this roundabout, with better planning, we could have gone with this blue car, or better still, with the white van coming up ahead. And if you're at this traffic light and there's traffic ahead of you, don't pass the stop line here. Just wait behind the line so that you don't end up blocking the crossing. See, just like what she's done here. Because if the light goes back to red and then pedestrians need to cross, you're not going to be blocking that crossing, and you might just get a red sorry, I said red. You might just get a serious fault for that. So you don't want to be doing this at all. Stay behind that white line until you've got a clear way after the box, then you can proceed. Don't block the crossing. And just as I was anticipating, light is changed and a pedestrian is coming through. But luckily there was just enough room for the pedestrian to pass. But remember that another examiner might still give you a serious fault for that, because you're taking some of that space, and maybe someone on a wheelchair might not have been able to access that space, because keep in mind this the curb is raised up at this point and they might not be able to climb up through that space. And again, with better forward planning, driver could have changed lane to the right after this Audi. And right here, she's pulling up on the left. And considering how busy this road is, I am pleased that she's pulled up very close to the pavement. But then while trying to do that, she hit the curb a little bit. But you can see there's no fault given for that. So this is one of those things to remind you again, if you hit or touch the curb just a little bit as you're pulling up to the left, don't start worrying too much about it. As long as your speed is reasonable when that happened and there's no one that was affected by that, then you should be just fine. Or worst case scenario, will be a minor fault.
And again, if you ask me, I would say she was again lucky for not getting any driving fault for this maneuver here, because as you can see there was quite some room on the right hand side that we could have gotten closer, much more to the pavement, to give more room on the road. So again, keep this in mind. This is a lucky drive. Unfortunately, she hasn't taken advantage of it, because with how lucky she's been with the examiner, you could have easily passed this test. So keep calm, stay calm. Don't pray and wish for a nice and lenient examiner that when you get one, you let it slip off your hand. So please stay calm. Okay, so they are now coming back to the test center, which leads us to the end of this test. And I must say, in summary, this was a very lucky test. I mean, still a fail, but I say lucky in the sense that, you know, it's been a very, very lenient examiner. And if I was marking this, I'll probably given a bit more or a little bit more faults. Not like if it's something exciting, it's just so that you understand that, you know, these are things that you still need to improve on, and if you don't get it now, another examiner might just give it to you later anyway, so you might as well do it now, get it now, and fix it. So for example, stopping on that crossing at the yellow box before the bridge at that traffic light, I wouldn't do, and that was a very lucky one that she didn't even get a driving fault, left alone a serious fault. Now the second was on due hesitation on that roundabout where we had the van, and again she kept waiting. And then we've got progress, appropriate speed, that continued through the test, and as you can see, it made the whole drive feel so much slow that it started to me to feel like, you know, this is a test at Heather Green Test Center rather than Bromley. I say that because Heather Green is mostly 20 miles an hour, I mean the roads, and Bromley is mostly 30s, but we drove through most of this test at 20 miles and less, so the momentum wasn't really there. And for that particular one, even before the series for progress, you probably would have given maybe 2 or 3 minors before that. So yeah, again, there was lucky there. And the last one was planning. You know, there were a couple of situations where better planning, better forward planning could have helped a lot. And for the Christmas, I have decided to give an offer for mock tests at Heather Green and Bromley driving test centers, and it's going to be £30 for the mock test. So if you want information on that, then get in touch with me and then I'll give you more information on that if you would like to benefit from that. So keep in mind, the mock tests are going to be recorded, so I'm saying this so that you don't call and then waste your time and waste my time as well. So if you wouldn't want to appear on any of these videos, then yeah, this might not be for you, unfortunately. But if you feel like you're going to benefit from seeing what your driving is like and watching the way you deal with the roads and all that, then yeah, get in touch. That might just be for you. So I will be posting more of that either on Instagram or on TikTok. So if you're not following me on those platforms, then you might want to. So yeah, if you got tests coming up before Christmas or in the new year, then maybe this might just help you see how ready you are and get a second opinion if that is something you have been interested in. So that is it for this video. That is it for this test. I hope you found it useful and helpful. Remember, if you're not subscribed to the channel yet and you're enjoying these videos, please click the subscribe button. And if you want to ask any questions and you want to make any comments or suggestions, then don't forget, leave comment below. And if you'd like to support the channel and the work that I do, then remember, you can use the thanks icon at the bottom of the video. So that is it. Stay safe on the road, stay blessed, best of luck with your driving lessons, and most of all the best with your driving test whenever it comes. So happy Christmas in advance if you are not going to be watching any more before Christmas, but if you are, I'll see you again. So that's it. Stay blessed. One love. I'm out.